Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry for the change in hour. I have an early morning meeting tomorrow, and so I wanted to start early, and we'll probably end earlier than I usually go today, just so that I can actually sleep at some point this week, which would be kind of convenient. So, quick update. Last week's, we prepped for a hackathon that I did over the weekend, which was rather fun and exciting. I was going to give a kind of a brief look at what we kind of built. It's not overly impressive, but I figured it's an interesting thing. It was an exercise in futility. We spent a lot of time just straight up fighting with the Microsoft Graph API because we hadn't worked a ton with it before. So it was a little bit of a learning opportunity, and there was a lot of hiccups. So we'll take a look at that, and then I was going to do some material design in XAML work, and then we've also got the fun brain teaser from earlier. So let's dive in and take a look. So first of all, we renamed the entire project. So anybody who was following along last week, sorry, the entire repo got renamed because we decided to rename it because reasons. The project itself isn't overly impressive. So for quick background, the idea is you've got a bunch of conference rooms at an office. You want to have a tablet mounted up by the door next to each of the conference rooms so that people can see when the conference room is booked versus open. And then ideally be able to, if you walk up and it's open and hey, you just want a quick 30-minute meeting with your team or whatever, tap a button, take over, that kind of thing. We didn't quite get all the way there. And the UI it could use some work. So, kind of some interesting points I'll go through and point out. So we spent a great deal of time dealing with this idea of this graph connector. So we had this idea that perhaps we may want to plug this in with other calendar APIs. So we set it up with this idea that there would be various connectors. Obviously, we built a fake one for the purposes of unit testing, and actually it ended up being nice because it let the people who were working on front end work do their thing while the rest of us beat our heads against Microsoft Graph and struggled. There wasn't a ton in here, and you can see there's a lot of hard-coded bits to go through. A couple interesting things with the Graph API that really caught us off guard was this idea of when looking at the docs, there's various ways to, for example, query a calendar. And oftentimes what you would see samples of is something doing graphclient.me.calendar, which says, okay, whatever user you're acting on behalf of, go ahead and grab that calendar. The problem is this is server communication. We weren't forwarding a user through. We effectively wanted a service principal behind the scenes going out and querying it and pulling it back. So it made it a little more interesting because there are multiple auth flows that you can go through. Specifically, application was the one from the docs that we were using. And a lot of the samples did not use that one. Which was really unfortunate. And figuring out that you had to do this funky little indexer thing in order to reach all the way through was rather surprising. That one caught us off guard, and we spent a great deal of time fighting with that. Huge points to ChatGPT, because when we were struggling with docs and trying to figure out how to do things, even though it didn't get the right answer, it got darn close, and it was close enough to get stuff figured out. So again, not a ton of great code in here. I wouldn't advocate anybody go through and pull it. We did do some interesting stuff with like the pipeline in here. So the one thing I will call out is we did leverage ODIC for doing the authentication between our GitHub Actions and Azure. You'll note there is no client secret here. This is kind of cool. Right. So if you're curious, check out the Azure login GitHub action. They have some docs on how to set up an ODIC so that you don't need to have credentials even in secrets in your repo anymore, which is pretty cool. Because even though secrets are relatively safe, it's not that hard to extract secrets. Any sort of string transformation to the secret can expose it, right? You can base 64 encode it. You can reverse the string. There's basically any transformation, because the runner on GitHub Actions, it basically is just doing a blind find and replace. I think it might be mildly smarter than that, but effectively that's all it is. So there's plenty of ways to do it. And so not having to have any secrets in the repo is great. And we didn't have to use secrets. I did learn about, oh, it's over here, I think. You'll note this now says secrets and variables, which is kind of cool. So rather than just having secrets here, you can actually create variables as well, which are effectively the same thing as secrets, except for they don't get the little, you know, starring out behavior, which is kind of cool. So we didn't bother to do that. I put all of these things behind secrets for reasons. The other fun thing that I did just for fun is if you try to hit this, our office has a static IP address. And so once we built our app that was actually hitting against our legitimate AAD and was able to have write access, we sort of figured, you know, maybe we don't expose that to the world. So we locked it down to just that IP address. We figured, meh, that's probably close enough security. Somebody would have to be on the office's network or spoofing the right IP or something in order to do it. So it was like, yeah, that'll be good enough. Okay, so there was the update. That was interesting stuff. Apparently our build and deploy is failing. There is, oh, interesting. Azure CLI login. Huh. Interesting. Might have to poke at that later and figure out what's going on. I'm not sure why the Azure CLI wouldn't be there. There was, and I will mention this as well. Last week's stream, I actually made a big boo-boo. And apparently I've made it multiple times because I made it by copying and pasting code from one of my other projects. During the hackathon, we discovered that I was an idiot and yeah, made a small mistake. So that's going to be a brain teaser for a different day. So I got excited about today's brain teaser and swapped them out. So wanted to go through on the material design and XAML project and poke away at some of these PRs, get the 5.0 stuff. There may end up being a 4.9. I can't decide. So right now there is a 4.9 milestone that exists. And so, what's up, Robert? So we will see if I actually kick a 4.9. There's a chance that all of the 4.9 things just get rolled up into 5.0. We're going to basically do the same thing I did before. We're going to run and see how far along I get on 5.0. And if I get 5.0 merged into master, 4.9 and 5.0 are going to collapse together. So this guy here, slider show, you may want to change. What? Did it not? Hang on. Thank you for the heads up. There we go. Okay. Apparently you have to actually click the save button for the text to update. So yeah. Yeah, that was my bad. Thank you for the catch. I appreciate it. We'll see what I think my automation uses whatever the last name of the stream was, not the first name. Otherwise I'll have to go and rename it. Anyway. Yeah, okay, so let's take a look at this, because this looks rather intriguing and rather nice as well. Show ActiveTrack. I'm wondering if this thing is so the fact that I see, so just in terms of design, in general with Boolean type properties, you want to name them in the positive, which this one is, show ActiveTrack, which is good. But I'm noticing all the samples are showing ActiveTrack being set to false. And yeah, I'm wondering, the other thing that I would generally advocate for is name them in the positive and default them to off. I'm not sure defaulting this to true is the best idea. So hold on, what is going on here? Why do we have, so this was a thing that was already there. I am confused. I preferred I could rename it to hide ActiveTrack instead. Okay, so let's check this guy out. So let's see. Add remote and check out. Pretty please. But boom, and then this guy here. There we go. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look here. Demos. Yeah, that'll work. The other thing I've been contemplating is trying to flatten some of the demos. It seems like it would be a nice thing to do. Maybe, possibly. It would be nice because the Material Design 3 demo is really slick, not gonna lie. But a lot of people don't know it exists, partly because it's not getting published. Maybe I should add that for the 5.0 release. Okay, so let's take a look at the sliders. And I'm a little interested in understanding this. So what... Let's see here. Is selection range enabled? Because I'm curious what the attached property does that the other one doesn't. So let's go take a look at the slider. Okay, so I want to check the PR real quick. Files changed. Don't care about that. So I'm most interested in like 690 or similar. So let's go. Nope, wrong button. G690, enter. Let's see, let's make sure that's fired up and there. Okay, so ActiveTrack. Show me your ActiveTrack. Okay. I'm surprised this wasn't exposed anywhere. Material design, slider horizontal. Okay. I mean, I see it. Am I just being dumb on what the change is affecting? Oh, I see. It's not the blue, it's the purple, isn't it? Yeah, I do think... Got it. So the idea being to be able to hide that. Got it. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so rather than the filled-in variability, we can turn the thing off. One of the other things that I'm contemplating doing is a major rework of the demo app, because I really like this show me the XAML bit, but I'm also wondering if it would be helpful to have pages where rather than seeing a whole bunch of these types of things, you see one slider with maybe some pre-canned layout stuff, and then a bunch of almost like a property grid where you can toggle what you want on and off. That way it's a little more interactive and you can see it work. Feels like that might be nice. Now, obviously, I'd still back it with something like this to gen XAML and whatnot, so because I think people like being able to see the XAML to go along with it. Okay, so I do like this. I do like it. I do agree with this suggestion of renaming it from show ActiveTrack to hide ActiveTrack. Yeah, because naming is hard. Because let's see, if we go to hide ActiveTrack, then the default can be false and it's still in a reasonably positive state. Great. I do think changing the name to hide ActiveTrack would be a little cleaner. Perfect. So we'll post that for now. We'll queue that up, and this is definitely an enhancement and probably something that makes release notes, I think. So we'll do that. Okay, next up, I want to look at why my XAMLTest thing is failing, because there was a bunch of work that was done on XAMLTest to clean up the intermittent failures, And so I thought when this change came through, it was going to be an easy win. And it turns out one of the tests is consistently failing. So we are going to check that one out. So let's go here, check out. Also, Git Kraken 9.2 released. Huzzah. If we go here, there's not a ton of stuff that got me overly excited. I will say I've started playing around with workspaces. They're kind of slick. I ran into an issue on Sunday where I got so fed up with one of my computers that I just formatted, reinstalled. I was too annoyed, scorch earth, start over. And it was actually really nice because I had set up a workspace with all of the repos that I had been currently working in, and I just hit clone all, and whew, next thing I know, all my repos are cloned and they're all where I want them to be, and it was really kind of convenient. So I'm going to spend a little more time playing with it, and then maybe we'll have a little stream checking it out. But cool stuff in here. I will make one comment for anyone on a Mac. There was a message in their Slack channel that there may be one-off issues for some Mac users. So if you're running into problems and you're on Mac, check out the Slack channel, and I believe they said to shoot them a message, and they've got kind of one-off solutions for people if you're on a Mac and having issues. So points to them. I will say the Git Kraken support team I've had awesome experiences. I'll put it that way. Okay, so I want to go here, and I want to go look at why this guy is failing, because I am annoyed that my pipelines fail. I like automation. I like the feeling that I get. Hello, GitHub. I like the feeling that comes when I feel like I've got all these little minion computers running around doing my bidding. It's the closest to evil overlord I'm probably ever going to get. Okay. So, and this one here, yeah, because this is respects keyboard tab navigation. And there was a bunch of changes around XAMLTest with this. So it doesn't entirely shock me that this is the test that's failing. But I do want to figure out why it's failing, because that may indicate either a testing hole in XAMLTest, which honestly, material design tends to be my testing bed for that library anyway. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So Passwordbox with reveal password respects keyboard tab navigation. So the idea here is when you're tabbing through your controls, because the Passwordbox, in order to do the password reveal, we have to effectively swap in a real text box on top of it in order to make that behavior work. But that means you've got a password box in the back, text box in front of it, and then, you know, that can make for some fun tab ordering issues because you've got two controls effectively at play. Okay, so what do we got? Text box. So this is text box 1, which comes before in the Z order because it's higher up in the XAML. Password box, the reveal password text box, and you know this one is hunting it out by name. So it just runs into the template and goes and grabs it. Text box 2 is after. So let's see. Move keyboard focus to the first text box. Great. Verify it's got keyboard focus. Send the tab key. Okay. Verify the revealed password box gets focus. Sends the tab key again. Verifies text box 2 has keyboard focus. Okay. And then tab backwards, so shift tab, keyboard focus. Let's see, so shift tab is expected to go from password box 2 back to the password box. Great. Verify that the password box has focus. And then from there, send tab one more time. Oh, interesting. I'm wondering if this thing is moving the focus elsewhere. Okay, so step 1, let's recreate the problem. Stop running. So we're going to run the test. Given that it failed on the pipeline multiple times, I'm really hoping that it just fails for me locally. It is always incredibly frustrating when you run into a situation where tests only fail on the pipeline. It's like the reverse problem that where the developer always says, "Oh, it works on my box." That's great. And then the manager's typical response, "Fine, we'll just ship every customer your box." And then we have Docker. But in this case, I'm really hoping, one of the big changes that I made to XAMLTest was to make it run slower, which sounds like a bad thing, but it was actually a feature. So the idea that, or the big idea that was happening is MS Test, the class shutdown, wasn't occurring right away. And so it could end up leaving windows layered on top of each other, which when you're trying to move a mouse around and click on things is actually problematic. So I forced the one test to wait till the previous one actually got cleaned up before it continued on. Okay, so why don't I have my little, what's my Test Explorer not showing my thingy, bobber? Okay, so this is about to become really frustrating because the test passed. So that's not a good sign. Let's just run them all. See what happens. Because effectively with these UI tests, you really can't run them in parallel. At some point, I may invest some effort in trying to figure out how to reasonably do parallel stuff, but it's, at present, that's not a major feature for me, since the primary use case of this library is so that I can do XAML testing. Why are there 43 tests here? Did I run the right test? Kind of wondering if I executed the wrong test. Because I might be inside of the generated ones. The or one of those things might be just a data-driven test with a bunch of inputs. Okay, well that unfortunately worked flawlessly. Dagnabbit, I always hate this. Let's take a quick peek. Yeah. These tests could probably be optimized. Might do a quick gander at these things to see. Yeah, because this test base is... This is spinning up a new app every time, so we could probably optimize some of this away. There's spinning up a new WPF process every time. Like, you can just look at the test execution time. Is nearly a second every single time, which being, 0.7 of a second doesn't sound bad until you have 43 of them. And then those 0.7 of a second starts to add up to like 13.3 seconds, give or take. Okay, so let's go back then, because this thing failed where? Let's see. So we did this. So the nice part is it does log all of its output, which is really, really, really convenient. So it got all the way to where it sent Shift Tab. And I'm noticing there's probably a bug in my logging output. I don't see why there's a space there and not one there. So XAMLTest probably has a small thing that we might just go fix here in a second. But we got all the way to there. It then queried, is keyboard focused? And then get screenshot is usually an indication of that's where the failure occurred. Which means if I go down and look at the assertion, let's see, line 330. 330. This one. So right after the Shift tab, sent the keyboard focus right back. So this is what ended up failing, is going backwards. But what's really interesting to me is that this test passes when I run it locally. Right? Password. Let's just make sure we're looking at it. Password box with revealed password. Password box with revealed password. Yeah, you'll note it goes through there. And it looks like it's just when I'm logging modifiers. There's an extra space. Because I see it both up here and down here. Okay. Really bothers me that it failed here. So let's go. The other thing that it does is when it fails, it uploads screenshots. So let's go and download those screenshots and take a look at them. Because that might give us some inspiration as to what actually occurred. Let's see. WPF, password boxes, password box tests. Hey, look, there it is. Okay, move your window. So the keyboard focus is clearly in the bottom text box still. But I am noticing it's almost like this thing went too fast. Because I see the underline control here, and it's almost like it's in a halfway state. Like it went really, really fast through those. Let's go back here, because that would, a timing issue would definitely explain the difference between each of these. Because we could slap some weights on these guys to make them retry a couple times at least. Let me grab this guy here. Kind of want to grab it here and here. So let's debug and take a little look at this. Oh, we may be attaching into the remote process. We may want to go turn that off. Yeah, so this is hung. So you can see as it's tabbing through, that underline hasn't even finished. So it's getting all the way to here and then bouncing really, really quick. Okay, so 1 second. We're gonna go and change one little thing here. So the this little Boolean, allow Visual Studio Debugger attach. You'll note when my test stopped at my breakpoint, it hung the WPF app as well. If you set that little flag to false, it'll pause the unit test, but it won't pause the running app, which means you can interact with it and snoop it and that kind of thing. But it also means that you can put yourself in a very awkward position. Okay, so that's there. So this one didn't actually move back. Oh, we haven't actually hit the send keyboard modifier yet. If I do this, and we check it, it does go there. I'm wondering if it's just going too bloody fast. Yeah, so let's do this. Because we can do some weights to slow this guy down. So wait, nope. Control Shift. Why does it think I have Control Z undo? That was weird. I don't know why it. Oh. I know why it was convinced I had Shift pressed. Because of this little sucker. I'm wondering if this should actually be this. And then this goes away. Send those keystrokes in that order. And then let's change this to wait for. Give it the lambda. Oh, right. Async. Wait. What's your problem here? Cannot convert. Why are you focused? There. I don't like whatever that was doing. Cannot convert from void to bool. What is my own signature? Func task bool. Right. There's a func task bool. Yeah. Cannot convert. Oh, this is, got it. Got it. So we don't actually need this guy here, because this guy is either going to throw or timeout. All right, because he's going to come through here, return success. Otherwise, he's going to throw a timeout exception. We can just do that. Let's go with, oh, are you going to... That's pretty good. Go IntelliCode. Okay, so we'll do that. Yeah, so the other thing you'll note is I've made 2 changes. And it's now immediately figured out the refactor pattern. And you can see the little ... dots kind of hovering underneath each of these asserts. Yeah, this is about to get real fun, right? So boom, boom, boom. And that's how we do refactors now. Yeah, the AI is kind of smart. I love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's run this and actually make sure it does what we expect. Yeah, see, I was worried that that wasn't going to work. Tacking in this on the end. Because this was shift tab and then sending... because hold on, this is to go to 2. So did it fail on this line here? Because then it went back for, oh, probably because it expects, it probably needs, well, it probably, okay, so there's probably a couple things that need to happen here. It needs to do that. It needs to do this. And then it needs the shift one here, I think. And this needs to be this. Something like that. Little white space to make it a little more readable. Something akin to that. Yeah. Let's run this. Because I think it gets confused if you send multiple modifiers in one. Interesting. So that failed. Well, at least we're now in the failure case. Let's see. So this shift tab doesn't send it backwards. That surprises me. That surprises me. So let's do this. Oh, it's probably because I'm sending keyboard input to the previous one, and It really needs to not do that. I see. I see. That's... Got it. This... Got it. That needs to go like that. And then this needs to come down here and be text box 1. Because if you send keyboard input to the wrong element, you end up running into the situation where you're refocusing the past element. Okay, try this. That went quick. And that succeeded. Okay, so let's try pushing this. Let's just check what we did. Hold on. I do not want that change, but I don't mind leaving it local. So just checking. Wait for... There, that font is tiny. Font be big. There we go. We can even go bigger. Bigger. Okay, so assert true became a wait for. That way it'll retry the check, just in case it needs a little time. And then we did end up dropping a modifier keys none, but we replaced it down below with this guy. I think that works. So, attempting to handle keyboard input better. And I should spell... This is the beauty of having my big head in the way. B-O-A-R-D. Is people can't tell when I misspell things. Okay, so let's do that, and then let's go bounce over to XAMLTest real quick and clean up the... Come on. Pull. Be over on this branch, please. Okay. Why does it have... Oh, because I was like, that's weird. Okay, never mind. Makes sense. So let's just go fix that login issue real quick. Because at some point I want to get a XAMLTest release out the door rather than just continually running on preview builds. We might just kick one. Tonight. I think if this other thing goes through and is stable, it's probably worthwhile kicking one. But let's get that logging done appropriately. So that was on the modifier keys. So let's jump to send input. Right, that was visual element something send input. Send keyboard input. That's the guy. Let's go to that method. Okay, so one of you in here is doing some logging. Let's find who did the logging. So, visual element, formatable string, breaks the thing apart, does some stuff, pulls the arguments out, builds the things, sends the input. Go to implementation. Keyboard input. And let's see here. So, keyboard input must have a toString, I'm guessing. Join inputs. Great. Clean up my using while I'm in here. This has got to be the keys input, I assume. Because the way that thing went through. More using cleanup. Where's the modifier? I don't see where because there's keys, but where is... Go to implementation. Let's see, modifiers input. There's the space. There's the guy. Gotcha. Okay. Clean that up. Let's add an XML comment while I'm here. Moves the keyboard focus to this element if it is focusable. We should probably put stuff on those as well, but whatever. We'll do it while we're here. Registers for an event by name of the event. Oh, look at that. The spell checker is even helping me. Nope, don't erase the semicolon. Unregister an event that was previously registered. CREF register for event. The event registration to like that. I think maybe possibly do that, do that, do that. Sure. Look at that spell check. This is why I need spell check. Because if I don't have it, I typo things all the bloody time. So I'm just gonna scan these real quick and see if there's anything else I've missed. Doesn't look like it. Cool. So minor cleanup, easy mode, easy mode. Let's see, create branch, code cleanup. Oh, while I'm in here, I will show off the testing pain that I suffered through. So unlike the material design project, this project uses MSTest. And I thought about trying to bring them together and then decided against it, just from the perspective of I want to kind of test in both cases. Both the to make sure that this does work well on both XUnit and MSTest. Because if it works on both of those two, it'll probably work on most other testing frameworks. The key thing being making sure that you turn off test parallelization on whatever you're running. But this is something I hadn't seen before. So if you use the class cleanup inside of MSTest, there's this enum that you can fire off that tells you when should the class cleanup behavior actually trigger. And if we go and take a look at this guy, end of assembly or end of class. And you'll note the default is end of assembly, not helpful. So that's why the tests were sticking around, because effectively MSTest wants to just run everything and then do the cleanup at the end, which is fine unless your other test initializers are assuming the previous ones are already done. So yeah, that wasn't great. So XAMLTest now has a built-in semaphore where it will, where is it? Where it will go through and put in a internal lock so that it, yeah, singleton app lock, this little guy here. So it's got a little semaphore to say, yeah, only run one at a time. And at some point I may need to put in a switch to disable this behavior if for some reason people want it to run in parallel. But for now, it's just on for everything because I think I want it on for everything that I'm doing. Somebody needs a switch, log a bug. Is this library created by you? Yes. Yes, and I can drop a link to it as well. So the idea was building the material design in XAML library. There wasn't a good testing strategy for testing UI elements in isolation. So this thing isn't quite a unit testing framework, and it's not quite a UI testing framework. Because UI testing frameworks aim to go through like the accessibility APIs to simulate what a user would do, which is good. Like apps should have UI tests. That's a good thing to build. But what I was looking to have is something to test controls by themselves. And when you normally like unit test a control, you have to do weird stuff with your unit testing framework to say, well, we need a UI thread, an STA apartment thread. So, well, now I'm going to tweak my unit test so that it runs in that. But then spinning up a control that way, you lose all of the like XAML lifecycle event stuff, like visibility changed or loaded, unloaded type behavior. And it was like, I didn't want that. So what it does is it spins up an empty WPF shell and then lets you interact with it. So you can just dump content in there, test it, see it run, and admittedly, it's slower than a unit test because it's spinning a whole WPF process in order to run it. But it lets you run the tests, or it lets you test stuff in isolation, which is ideal for me, because that's effectively what I want. Is I want it to run individual controls and styles, because so much of the material design and XAML project is it's styles and templates. And it was all there was all these times where we would have bugs and people would make changes, and the only way that bugs got caught is people testing preview builds or me going through and catching them. And there's just too many controls and styles to realistically monkey click your way through to test them. So built this I'm a software developer, so my default instinct is must write software to solve problem. And in this case, I kind of like where it landed. It has been a wonderful learning opportunity, I will say that. Okay, so we're going to see if that guy goes through and works. Because if it does, we're going to ship it. We're going to enable auto merge, confirm auto merge. And we're going to go in here and we'll just throw the approve on this. Oh, I just realized I pushed to Dependabot's branch. So it's not horrible to push to Dependabot's branch, but Dependabot, the moment you do that, will go, okay, you're in charge, which is both a blessing and a curse. Then you have to, to get out of that state, you have to do something like recreate or whatnot, because Dependabot doesn't like to try to deal with conflicts and whatnot if other people are pushing into the branch. It's basically you either drive or let it drive. Okay, so we'll see where that goes. Close that, close that, close that. Okay, well that's running. We're going to do something more interesting. Let's go look at the brain teaser. That was fun. Okay, so this one bit me today. This was a bug in a production application that caused me much pain and grief earlier. Unfortunately, I was also the author of the bug, so that made it even worse. But so here's the deal. The idea being, you've got this test here, and this test, if I run it, is going to pass, which is great. The idea being is, green circle, yay, test passes, is how can you make this test fail without editing any contents inside of this, right? And obviously things, you like throw new exception. Yes, this will make the test fail, right? That doesn't count. We're looking to do something up here that causes this code down here to fail. So walking through this code, we pull out a date time instance. We've got a format string. The capital M is month, lowercase d's is day, 4y's is year. So in my case, it's March 8th at the moment, 2023. So I expect 03/2 or /08 /2023. We pass in the format string. We get back a string foo. We then go and parse it back out using the same format that we sent in. We assert that we were able to parse it, and then we assert that the dates match. Now, obviously, the incoming date time had a time component to it, and there's plenty of opportunity for like weird stuff to happen here. So the question being, how does this fail, or under what conditions does this fail? So I'll give people a moment to look at it. Pause the stream. Spoilers incoming. This will make it into my my brain teaser repo, by the way. Oh, on the note of the brain teaser repo, shameless self-promotion incoming. I gotta find it first. Oh, I posted it on Twitter earlier today. That's what I'll do. I'll just go here. We go here. So there is a, let's see. So there is a playlist and a repo. So for anybody who's interested, here's a playlist of videos. And if you want to see the whole collection of them, there's the repo with all the things in them. So for what it's worth, there's all of that stuff. There's a set of brain teasers to spot the bug problems. This one is going to end up in the spot the bug problem category. And if anybody wants a mild hint, you can format dates, eh? If I can play on at least one stereotype. Okay, so here was the bug as it was presented to me. There was a customer running the software. The customer was from Canada, and when they ran the software, they were getting into a state that didn't seem possible at first because the software was insisting that their version was out of date, and I was very confused. And in this case, the software was doing a simple date check, comparing two dates, right? It wasn't an equality check, it was an inequality check, but whatever, right? Two dates, are they equal, are they not? And I stared at the code for a very long time and was very confused because we had not seen this issue occur anywhere else. The software's been in production, or this version of the software has been in production for several months, with the vast majority of users not experiencing this bug, which made it seem very unusual and immediately made me start thinking, okay, what is different about this client, their machines, their setups? Because it wasn't just like one person. It was, they had a group of people all experiencing the same issue. I'm going, that's like, you can kind of write off user environmental factors if it's only a handful or one or two, but when you've got a large group there, and I'm like, okay, something's clearly off. And so started playing around with this and immediately noticed, well, started looking for things that would trigger based on environment, right? Because the condition was occurring only on a particular set of users, I immediately start looking for environmental things or what would be different about them. And the most obvious thing was their location. So if we go here, let's just grab my little solution. You'll note if we do this, and when we just change our current culture, just change the culture to French Canadian, and then we run this, the test immediately fails. So what is failing now? All right, so if we take a quick look, we can see the is true. Line 28 is failing. So can parse is failing. So why is can parse unable to parse out a date? So let's just attach a debugger real quick and go and take a little look-see at what's going on. And this is where the confusion will start. So if we take a look at foo, just real quick, ballpark, you can take a quick guess of what value you expect to see in foo. And see if I can grab, just go locals window. So I will point out the value of foo is 03-08-2023. Yeah, that's exciting. So then the question is, well, hang on. We understand why, MMDDYY, like people who work with dates or times in C# are familiar with kind of these custom format strings that you can provide. But what's going on here? Well, if we come and look at, that's the brain teaser repo. I got to find where I put my other one. Did I close my window? That'd be really disappointing. Oh, no, I didn't close my window. I just moved it somewhere else. Whoop. There we go. Doc, there. So if we come over here and look at the custom datetime format strings, and I'll drop a link for anybody who wants to follow along. Boom. There. If we come in and look at here, so usually when I'm teaching people about custom format strings in C#, the first thing I tell them is I don't expect you to memorize all these custom format strings. I expect you to memorize where to find them. That way you know where to get to these things, right? So I don't expect people to remember everything that's in all of these pages, but I highly recommend familiarizing yourself with the kinds of things that are in these pages and knowing to look them up, because they will save you all kinds of stuff. So you'll know there's all these format specifiers, right? So we saw DD, the day of the month, 01 through 31. Great, wonderful. We can come down here. We can find month, double capital M, 01 through 12. What a shock, right? Nothing surprising. We can come down here. We can find the 4-digit year. Perfect. And then we come a little further and we find this lovely little guy. That thing. The / is also a format specifier. It is the date separator. Now, inside of an invariant culture, it's just a little slash. But if we go through and dive in a little deeper, we can see here that, actually, I think it was better over here. We can see that there is a set of, they give a couple samples of it right here on the right, where depending on the locale that you're in, and I don't know what ARDZ is or TRTR, I'm not familiar with them, but there's at least a few known cases where that / is going to either be a /, like in my case, because I'm in the US, this is my culture, I'm going to get the /. Some set of cultures are going to get a hyphen. Apparently, Canadian French is also one of them. Who would have known? And then some cultures are going to get a little period. So that's the reason for the bug. The question then becomes how to fix it. Right? There's a couple ways to go about doing it. And this is, once again, like with so many of these things, the correct solution may depend on your particular application. So take everything with a grain of salt. My opinion is one of the simplest solutions is if you know you're going to be parsing with an invariant culture on one side, do the toString with an invariant culture, right? These things should match. If you're going to do culture specific stuff, it's usually because it's going to be a UI facing value, right? It's going to get surfaced up somewhere where displaying it in a culture specific way is useful. If you're passing data back and forth between two machines, that's probably not the case, and you probably want to do something like this. Probably, right? So if we run this test again with just this change, it goes green. Great. There's another solution that I had not considered that a colleague of mine, when I showed it to him, sent it to me. There's this ugly maneuver. And we will run this again. And the test still passes. So then why does this work? Is there a separator utility for separating month, day, and year? Sort of. The way I would typically go through and separate them is I would end up using one of these try-parse or try-parse exact methods to get yourself out a date time object. And then if you wanted to break those things apart, do something, once you get the date time back out from your format specifier, then you can act on the date time to do something like, pull the year back out. And at this point, now it's an integer. You can format that how you'd like, right? If you want to pad it out to 4 digits or whatnot, that becomes a much simpler problem. The only reason this type of format specifier works, if we go back to that lovely little docs, you'll note this is the escape character, right? So double / because we're inside of a regular string, we could make it a little cleaner by doing this maneuver, right? So this is effectively escaping the / to make sure that it always comes in as a slash. I mean, it works. I would posit that is a less obvious solution than advocating for simply putting in the appropriate culture. And there are, depending on how paranoid you set your .NET analyzers, there are analyzers that will yell at you if you call one of these toString methods, even indirectly, right? Because it's not always obvious that you could always do something like this. If I could type, that would be helpful, right? And that's also going to end up giving you a toString, and maybe you get fancy, right? And do dd right? Same problem, except for now you aren't specifying culture anywhere. So this type of behavior is great right up until you care about localization. And then falls off. The other thing to be aware of is that sometimes, like, because I've shown people these localization issues, and they're like, I never run into these. Typically, the reason that occurs is because they are writing like server backend software in like ASP.NET Core and deploying out to cloud systems. In a lot of cases, like Azure App Service, the environment that your code is going to run under is going to be an invariant culture anyway. So you don't specify it, and you're getting this behavior, but you're getting it by accident, because that just happens to be the way that either, like, say your base image is set up, if you're like deploying with one of the Microsoft containers or similar, right? So a lot of times people get the invariant culture by accident and don't think about it. This is one of those cases where, like, I do a bunch of WPF work. Desktop apps actually have it a little bit harder or easier, depends on your perspective, because now they actually have things like users that could change their locale on their system. That's a thing that could happen. And then making sure you respond to it appropriately. So my suggestion would be the cleanest option, or one of the clean options, would be to do this. And this was actually the fix that I ended up implementing in the project I was working on. Is I ended up saying, no, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to specify the same culture in both places. Problem solved, right? Same culture, both spots. Don't have to think too hard. This is how it should have been in the whole case. Ideally, formatting a date this way is probably also wrong. A better date solution for if you're sending dates back and forth is going to be one of the O or R patterns, depending on what you're doing, right? Because O is a round trip evaluation thing back and forth. So there's better ways to have formatted the date to begin with that it probably should have been using. But in this case, that wasn't a viable option to do. So specifying culture in both cases, huzzah. So there's the brain teaser. This one will eventually make it into my brain teaser repository because I thought it was interesting. There's certain cultures that I've just started to learn are really bad for American developers because there's so many assumptions that they break on how our code is written. Like, if you have code that's written around the decimal specifier, the decimal and the comma are flipped from what it is in American English. And so it's one of those types of cultures are great to test on, because if you've written bad code, it'll bite you. What do you think about Nota time? Ooh, great question. So the hackathon this weekend was actually one of the first times that I got to work with it. And so Nota time is, for people unfamiliar with it, is an open source library that's existed for a long time to sort of work around some of the, we'll say, shortcomings or weird API limitations inside of date time stuff in the base class libraries in .NET, right? The base class libraries pre .NET 7, you really only had date time offset, and time span. Those were your big three, and that was pretty much it. .NET 7 added things like date only and time only, hallelujah, right? So you can finally have something that's just a date. And Nota time, I believe John Skeet is currently the primary developer behind it. And I do not envy anybody who builds their own date time library. That is fraught with peril, and it is not trivial. There's plenty of videos online that will enumerate all of the difficulties. But Nota time was actually really nice to work with. The only thing we struggled with is we actually took the base class on Nota time, I believe was Instant, I think is what it was called. And we were using it inside of our DTOs, our data transfer objects that we were serializing between our server and our client. And the only thing that mildly slowed us down is they are not serializable by the JSON serializer by default. Now, there's a very simple extension method and setting that you can just flip on and poof, problem goes away and you're fine. But if you don't know to do that and you plug them in, that your JSON serializer falls apart. Overall, it was actually it was a reasonably good library to work with. I think I had a better than normal experience though, because I had a guy on our hackathon team who was very familiar with the library, and so it meant that anytime a problem came up, he just wheeled his chair over and then talked us through everything. I didn't have to like try to find the right APIs or any of that stuff. It was just, hey, what's the right way to do this? And then he tells me and we continue on. So I think I had a really gentle introduction with having a nice person there. So that worked out really well. Really, I thought the library was quite good, especially in terms of what it got you. It really does force you to have to think through dates, times, time zones, all of, and actually be intentional about doing that. Because the date time object, it's really easy to be lazy and not think about things like time zone, right? Like I've done datetime.now, and that's subtly very, very different than something like UTC now, right? And again, one of those things that for me, datetime.now is going to be a -8 off UTC, just because of the time zone I'm in. Whereas if I were to run this on, say, an Azure App Service, where it's going to be set in that alternate culture, it's not going to have that offset. So there's things like that where it's the base class library stuff allows you to be a little sloppy, whereas it felt like Notatime required you to be explicit and actually think through what you were doing and what you cared about. Like, is this something where like time zone is important, right? Or is this something where only date is needed, or that kind of things, which was actually kind of like, on one hand, it wasn't as easy to just shove a value through, but it wasn't easy to shove a value through because it was forcing you to actually think through those things and be explicit, which in the end, I think made for better code, I think. But again, it was a very, very gentle introduction. Okay, let's go back here. This is not the one with my GitHub. Where's the one with the GitHub stuff? Uh-oh. I think our thing failed again. Why do you fail? Why do you fail? And why do you only fail on the pipeline? You jerk. Okay, so start with this. All the way to the bottom. Let's look at how many failures start with. Okay, once again, we're at only one failure. Of course, we're at only one failure. Now let's go find the big thing with a stack trace. This thing failed. So is it the same exact test? Same exact test. What's interesting to me is this test apparently works on master, but not on the... but not here. So which one did it fail on? Shift keys tab. So shift tab isn't behaving. Interesting. So it's the same. Where's the line number of the stack trace? So 332. I think that was the same failure. 332. Yeah, same failure. Same failure. Focus didn't move. Let's look at the I want to see what had keyboard focus, so we're going to grab the screenshots. I will say this screenshotty thing is probably one of my favorite-ish things. Oh, interesting. It's like it missed the modifier, and move the focus one step up above. That's interesting. I wonder. No, that wouldn't make sense. I was going to say, I wonder if because these things run in kind of like this headless style environment, if that causes problems. Because I could see it being problematic. Like running on one of these hosted agents, they are in a headless environment. And they're expected to be clean machines every time. So why would this not have... Why would the focus be moved up there? It's nice having this underlying control on the text boxes, because even if the screenshot doesn't catch the I bar, the vertical cursor, it at least is kind enough to show me where the keyboard focus is located. It's interesting. When did this thing run? I assume this thing must have executed... the timestamp on this. 18 minutes ago? Okay. Well, I guess I had a... I guess I know roughly when it ran. I'm going to go with 6 after the hour. And depending on your time zone... because what? It's 9:30 p.m. local time for me. So if I add 8 to 9, 8 and 9 is 1700, so 5 a.m. Yeah, that lines up. So once again, machine running in cloud, different environment. Do we use... Is this the only test using the new modifier keys stuff? I wonder if... show me an instance of modifier keys. Got it. So this is the only test leveraging them. Interesting. So if there's a bug with them, it's only going to be this test. Let me see. Let's see. I've recently learned there's a page control in WPF, but why I don't see it being used so much nowadays. People use user controls, including you. I see you use the user control instead of page in the Simply Budget project. That is true. Trying to think if there's a good rational explanation. So a lot of the difference between user control and page kind of comes down to a bit of preference. There's a very skilled WPF developer that I work with in my day job, and he very much likes page over user control. And so we will have debates about which one is better. And I don't think there's a one right answer. So, and I'm wishing I had him around, because I don't know if I can necessarily give a great answer on why to pick one over the other. If I can remember, the justification is he will often use page when the page is a I don't want to say full layout, but almost like a big layout bit, right? So if you've got, you can imagine if you're building something like almost like Visual Studio, where each of these tabs is effectively one big thing, a page might get used. Now, in a lot of cases, I like the user control a little better. It fits the mindset of what I'm building, and I like the user control stampy ability of the user control is a little bit easier if I want to shove it into a smaller container versus a full page type layout. But yeah, I don't, honestly, I think I probably need to look into it and come up with a better answer, because it is probably worth making a small video on the pros and cons of each, because it's, the only drawback is the answer is really, it depends, and a lot of it comes to preference. Though 1 second, we may go merge a different PR real quick. I just got notification that this one just went through. The property is now renamed. Oh, that is awesome. Let's just give it a quick glance, and then I think we set auto merge on this sucker and let her go. Hide ActiveTrack, hide ActiveTrack, hide ActiveTrack. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Excellent rename. Defaults to false. Excellent. Inverts. All of those things stay the same. All of those things stay the same. Perfect, right? Because when hide is true, hidden, hide true, hidden, hide true, hidden, hide true, hidden. Perfect, 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 perfect. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Ship, ship. Okay, so we'll do that. Enable auto merge, confirm auto merge, and away it goes. And out the door. Sweet. That'll make for... Okay, now I'm still left in the dark wondering why the heck. So let's go back to my XAMLTest ones, because send keyword input tests. We wrote tests around these. Why do I have compile? There's some source generator-y magic happening in these tests, so the red squiggles are likely an indication that source generators haven't run. But I thought we had tests. Yeah, we had things like this, doing Control A. So this is Control A, C, none, tab. So yeah, so Control A, select all, Control C, copy, tab down to the next control, Control V, paste, modifier keys none, and then test passes. Formatting's a little off there, but these tests all pass. So I'm a little confused as to how that would be not working. Oh, did I not open a PR? Or did it already close? I just didn't open. Oh, I didn't. I just didn't open a PR. That's fine. That's a using statement. That's getting rid of the space that we wanted to. That's adding XML comments and fixing a typo. That's good. That's removing a using. That's clean. This is fixing some auto formatting. There. Nothing a big deal there. Why would these tests pass and the other ones fail? More importantly, why would, knowing that this works here, and that works there. Let's see. So what is going on? So this sends a tab. This sends shift tab, but I would have expected then that, I bet you we're getting into that fun situation where it tries to send these commands to the wrong thing. Because I almost would have expected, because this, in my opinion, makes the test read a little bit better. If we do this kind of deal. But if I remember correctly, this doesn't pass. Because it seems a lot cleaner to me to say send shift, send tab. That passed? Yeah, so that passed. Passed rather fast, in my opinion. Shift tab all the way. But it got the keyboard focus, which is what we're going for. Sorry, one moment. That should just work. I'm very confused why that... what else is different about this one test? What else is different? Like, normally I would say that there's an issue with the template, perhaps, but that can't be the case here. We know that the animation stuff is triggering because we've gathered screenshots of the underline halfway expanded. So it's not an animations issue. That seems reasonable. I am realizing that it may be worth exposing a XAMLTest API because WPF has APIs for using the focus manager to, like, say next, previous, you know, out, in, right? Those types of things. And it may be worth putting some convenience wrappers around that in XAMLTest to make them easy to invoke. I mean, XAMLTest has a backdoor where you can just load up your own user control and write whatever you want in the code behind. And it'll execute inside of that WPF host. So any API it doesn't expose, just write your own control and slap it in and away you go. I'm going to send this because I don't see... Right, so all we're going to do is move the... Yeah, I do wonder if maybe things are being sent either too fast or too slow. I want to look at the code here for sending the keys, though. Let's see. So key input, keyboard input, send modifiers, because this is heavily based upon the send keys API from WinForms. So get key press. Can we not just flatten this? Yeah. Just flatten these two while we're cleaning stuff up. Hey, autocode, do it for me. Oh, I love that. Love that. Thank you, autocode. You're my friend. See, get key press, get characters. Oh. This is now unused. That's fine. That's fine. What are you squawking about? Simplify name. Sure. You can simplify the name. I am wondering if we're just firing things off a little quick. Oh, sure. Fine. Autocode, you're too quick. So if modifier keys is none, we're going to go through and turn stuff off. Otherwise, we're going to fire off the appropriate virtual key commands based upon the modifier keys that are passed in. And we have the ability to pass modifier keys. Like I was setting them one at a time, but this is a flag denum. So you can toggle those things back and forth. For fun flag denum problems, see last week's streams on the brain teaser because there's a fun one for it. Get key press down, up. Because what are we going to end up doing here? We're going to come into here. Well, I should say we're going to start in here. We're going to end up hitting shift because the only flag that's going to return true is going to be these. Right? So it's going to go ding, 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 ding. So it's going to go up, up, up. Because the create input, the bool here is for the up command, which works. And then something in the back of my mind is telling me that the send keys API had a delay in there. And I'm wondering if this is the reason for it. Let's go take a little look, see. I think we just want this one. The add simple key. I thought there was. Yeah, I remember seeing a funky delay in here. And this is saying for Alt-Tab to work. I'm curious if that is a possible issue. Because they would be doing this thread sleep between what? Where is the... Take me back. What are we inside of here? So this is the events. It's dequeuing the events. The events themselves are each of these user32 send input calls, which for us, I think are what get invoked on each of these. So it's these guys here. Sure. Thank you, AutoCode. You're being really helpful. You want to do that one too? No? I'm wondering if there should be a thread sleep. And I'm very intentionally thinking of a thread sleep, not a task delay. Yeah, I'm wondering if that needs to be there. And then can I grab this block? Yeah, I think we're going to do this because future Kevin is not going to know what past Kevin was thinking. Oh, and they also reset keyboard using send inputs. Right. Well, but these ones here I don't think are overly relevant. These ones are intentionally just looking for scroll lock, num lock, caps locks. And I think that's kana. I believe that's one of the Japanese keyboard inputs, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Send inputs to turn. Inputs are pairs because key up is sent for each one. Right. So there's keyboard DW flag 0 and then DW flags up is what's being sent in both of these cases. I don't think that's relevant for us. I don't think that's relevant. But I am curious about adding in this thread sleep and seeing if that makes a difference. I wish there was an easier way to test this, but I don't know if there is. But we're going to add this in, and we're going to send it and let it go. Let's see. Adding in a... oh, that's the wrong repo. Let's try this again. Minor code cleanup. Adding a thread sleep to better match send keys. I'm just very surprised whenever I see issues like this where it's different on my local box versus the remote system. My gut reaction starts looking at what's different between the machines. And sometimes with debugging, that's really what you end up needing to do is stop and think about what is different about the machines where you see the success versus where you see the failure. Right? And going back to that same issue with the brain teaser from tonight of the date time and figuring out, okay, what's different about the machine running it, right? Take what you already know. Like one, I know that there are, many users are in production using this without issues. Okay. So it's probably not just a general bug in the code, because if it were, it would break for everybody, right? There has to be some condition that's different to trigger it. And then start working backwards from what you know, and then start looking for cases. I've really tried to think and see if I can come up with brain teaser problems, because I really enjoy most of the time I enjoy getting just a stack trace or a bug report, and then having to kind of play detective of figure out, okay, I can see, maybe the app is crashing or whatever. Like I can see the stack trace of where the crash is, but how did we get there? And start trying to reason through what the inputs would have had to have been in order to get there. Now, sometimes if you have good logging and whatnot, it ruins the detective work and you go, oh, that's the problem. And you fix it and it goes away. But it's always fun in those areas where it's not cleanly documented, where there's maybe not enough logging output and you have to kind of start deducing what set of things would have to be true in order to make it work. Always love that. Okay, so we're going to send this, and then we're going to start pull request. Oh, it's because I've got Nikolai's remote added as well. That's why it's confused. There we go. Start pull request. Create pull request. View on GitHub. Enable auto merge. So as long as this merges, this will kick out a new one. Have you tried Appium on WPF or similar for end-to-end testing? So we've played around with, and I'm trying to remember whether it was Appium, because I've played around with various UI testing libraries. And they're all very good. Like Appium is probably one of the better WPF UI testing libraries. The big limitation that I have, and I should say this, it depends on what you're trying to test, right? If you're trying to test an app and you're using Appium to effectively automate away what used to be manual user testing, that's great. That's a perfect use case. Do that. It works very well for cutting out what used to be a manual user test. But it's the testing exists on a spectrum. Ooh, hang on. Where is this one? Ha. Okay, shameless self-promotion. I wrote the blog post. But so testing exists on a spectrum, right? Of it, because I go as far as to say compiler errors are a form of test, right? The developer types some stuff down. Does it work for the end user? There's a whole big spectrum all the way across the board, right? You've got the compilers, your first unit test, right? Does the compiler agree that what you typed in is valid code? And then we get to like unit tests, and then we get to like your functional integration tests, and then you get to like manual tests, and then end user. I put end user testing because by the time you're shipping to end users to use them as testing, that's not really testing, but it is something to consider, right? Like, do you have appropriate logging when the end user fails? Like I put like Appium tests somewhere between like, they're in this green to yellow-ish area for the speed, because they're better than having a user follow a script and clicky through your app in a lot of cases, because they're going to do the same thing every time. The users tend to think for themselves, which is really disappointing. But so for eliminating manual tests and shifting that work left, I think things like Appium are great, and they work well. But as much as possible, it is worthwhile to always look at how much can you shift all the way to the left, right? Like ideally, as much as possible, gets into this fast test bucket with the unit tests. But unit tests aren't an end all to everything. Like people can have amazing test coverage and then still have bugs leak into their code, because unit tests by definition are testing units. There's going to be breaks, likely in the places where components start talking to each other. That's where those seams in your code that you put in for testing start to also be the points where things break, right? Just like when you're building anything, if you like glue two things together, where's it going to break? Probably right where the glue is first, right at the seam of the joint. But that's where you start using these like integration tests and functional tests and automated UI tests to go all the way across to verify, okay, yes, the happy path is across. But you don't want to use the slow tests and the manual tests to like exhaustively test all the cases, right? You want to test a handful of the cases to make sure that, you know, the paths are working, and then all the little side shoots try to shift those things as far left as possible. So if you're interested, there's that. Feedback welcome. I very much love testing. I think it is wonderful. I want to get XAMLTest to where it's a little more useful for UI testing, because at present it's not a great, there's a lot of known failure cases. You can't, even though it wants to be able to be pointed at just a generic WPF app and fire up, that'll work. But there's several known failure cases that I know about with like weird dependencies. Like there's like if you've got a SQLite dependency, it can bite you a little bit, because the way XAMLTest fires up and tries to load your app into it, it may not get the load context exactly right and may miss like native dependencies and things like that. So it's not great for all cases, but it solves the one use case I built it for. And I do want to make it better. The other thing I will warn you of if anybody starts using XAMLTest is you do need to make sure that your target framework of your test project has to exactly match your running app. And there is a bug in XAMLTest at the moment that I'm aware of where the .NET 6 target actually has accidentally references a .NET 7 assembly, which it's disappointing that my test didn't catch it, but that is a thing. So just be aware that exists out there. I was hoping this thing would hurry up and push through, but oh, it's just now running the test. Oh, and there's actually a decent number of tests here. It looks like this thing has a ton of tests. And I'll just show real quick, Test Explorer. Yeah, so you'll note 665 tests. That's a lot. But you'll note that of those, I wrote 110. And I wrote a source generator to do the other 500. So quite exhaustive testing. But I only wrote 110 tests. And the source generator did the lion's share of the work. Because I was lazy and went, why should I write tests when I can write a source generator to write the test for me? Which I thought was quite fun. Okay, I'm going to let that go through. want to get this thing in. My hope is that I'm going to get a little time and circle back for the 5.0 release stuff, because I do want to get the generator stuff in and working to generate all of the theme brushes, because we did get I think it's checked in. Let me just check. Okay, so I need to turn off some remotes so I can see what I'm doing. Where is my 5x? Yeah, this guy here starts doing XAML source generation for being able to build out brushes. And so this is what I want to get fully working. Is I want to check in something that looks like this JSON, and I want it to generate all of the relevant code in the library. That way, when we go to add a new theme brush, it's as simple as you edit the JSON file and the build system takes over and you don't have to think too hard. So that's the end goal. I think this color thoughts one is going to be where we land. Pretty sure, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Cool. And that PR is in and done. I'm somewhat tempted to not touch this. Yeah, we're going to commit these changes, but I don't have any confidence this is going to fix the problem, and I'm probably going to end up having to pick up some XAMLTest debugging here. But I think with that, I am probably going to call it for tonight. I apologize for everybody who's catching me off on my hour shift for everything. So for people who missed it at the beginning, I have an early morning meeting. So I started early so I could end early because sleep is apparently important for humans. That's a thing. It's also why I drink Mountain Dew. Yeah, so for anybody who didn't catch it before, definitely check out my Brain Teasers repo. There's YouTube videos. I've got them queued up to come out every Wednesday. So there's going to be a new one dropping every Wednesday, at least through this whole month, because I've got ones queued through the end of the month. So there's going to be a stream of them coming. And I keep finding more things to put into here. So it's just going to keep going because I have fun. I have fun doing these things and I enjoy solving them. So it's, yeah. And again, if people come across something, because half the time these problems come up just while I'm doing my day job, obviously don't send me proprietary code, like distill it down into something that can be shared. And then by all means, shoot me an issue or whatever on the repo and always have to take a look at it. But with that, I'll tell everyone happy coding. Thank you very much. See y'all next time.